Hello, welcome and greetings to the inaugural Raging Ranga podcast. So, just to set the context and set the stage, what will hopefully be a successful channel and gradually increasingly more professional channel. I know it all looks a bit ad lib here. You'll have to forgive me. I am, not in my teens anymore. But yeah, this is just a podcast about developing issues, political issues, and social topics in the good old, formerly good country at least, of Australia. So I'm just a regular working class Aussie dude, with pretty conservative political and social and economic positions. So my intention here is just to have a bit of a chin wag about current affairs in the country. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll hate me instead. That's okay, we can't all get along. So I just wanted to also talk about the political landscape and recent history, political history of Australia, just so perhaps our international viewers can get a little better understanding of what I'm on about most of the time, even though I don't know what I'm on about most of the time. But anyway, we have two major parties here, the Liberal National Party, which is a coalition between the Liberal Party and the National Party. They used to be pretty conservative. They're not really conservative at all anymore, but people in Australia still kind of think of them as being our conservative party. And I know that seems antithetical to a lot of people in the United States because I know what liberal means there. It's something different down here. The other major party is the ALP, the Australian Labor Party. Now, ironically, these guys used to be quite right wing many, many moons ago, but they're very much a left wing party now. Uh, over the past 20 odd years of my adulthood, they've always proven themselves to be a pretty incompetent party, and they never usually stay in power for that long. The LNP usually are holding down the fort until they get a bit too cocky or a bit too pushy, and they try to push through something that the Australian public as a whole is not popular with or happy with. And then Labor gets in, and then the next 3 to 4 years, Labor proved to us why we always wind up running back to the LNP. But as I was saying before, the LNP used to be a very conservative party, but they've sold out a lot of their old ideological base. They're a very kind of centre right at best, maybe a millimetre to the right. I would just think of them probably as a straight up centrist party. But yeah, they've absolutely, whatted the bed, and Labor have managed to re-elect themselves in May, this month. So, without further ado, let's get into some breaking news. Now, I've already forgotten where I got this article to my right, but it's new Labor senator, a young lady by the name of Charlotte Walker, only 21 years of age. Now, I'm all for, bringing new blood into politics. I think people start to get a bit entrenched and a bit too career orientated rather than doing what's, good for the country, or at least serving the ideological interests of their voter base, which the LNP haven't probably done in about 20 years. But she is here from the Labour's left faction. Now, you've already got a very left wing party, but she's a left wing faction of that, so the sky's the limit of the kind of insanity I'm sure she'll be endorsing. We're going to be more open borders, gender reassignment surgery for young children, uh, the hormone replacement therapy, all that kind of insane playing God stuff that they want to do with children who are too young to consent. Yeah, not good. Let's move on to our next article. Alrighty, next article. I'm afraid I, for whatever reason, couldn't resize this to fit into this screen appropriately, so I'll just pop it up here. An article from a online publication, an organization called the Human Rights Law Centre. We're in a real sad state of affairs when you hear of places that have these, positive names like Human Rights Law Centre. Like, why would you not be for human rights. Well, I don't think people have a right to come into my country. You know, you can have an opportunity if you have something positive to contribute and you're willing to integrate. I can deal with that. But I find these kind of organizations are always standing with people that we'd frankly be better off without. And frankly, people that those countries of origin are probably happy to get rid of. But they're having a good old cry here because of supposed new migration laws that were passed in November of last year, which I'm sure will not be stringent or strong at all, given that they came through under the Labour Party. But let's move down to what do we know? Australia will be able to strike deals with other countries so that people who are being deported can be sent to countries other than their country of origin. Now, even though I'm slagging this mob off right off the bat, I will give them this much credit. This is something that I don't agree with. This is how David Irving wound up getting busted, because he had a opposing view of the Holocaust to the official narrative, and he did this in a country where it wasn't even a crime. But he was picked up in Heathrow Airport in the UK and deported to Austria, where it is a crime. So you're really opening Pandora's box with those kind of laws. So I'm certainly not in agreement on that. Not that I can say that there's probably much of that comes out of the Labour Party that I would agree with. But the second point here is Australia will be able to enforce bans on entire countries, preventing anyone from those countries from applying for Australian visas, with limited exceptions for some immediate family members. Keyword there being limited. Bullshit. Yeah, they won't be limited. Every man, woman, child, their dog, their neighbour, postman will all be allowed in under this limited thing. That's the whole point of having, these across the board bans on certain countries, because when you're a country that, still currently has a fairly good standard of living, we have that luxury of being able to pick and choose who we take. So we really should only be taking the absolute best, the absolute cream of the crop. And if we're not finding many people coming out of specific countries, then why not just simplify the process and just write that country off and be like, no, we don't need you, stay home, work on your own business, and hopefully, fix up whatever is causing you all to piss off. Alrighty, and for our third and final article, we have something from the Sydney Morning Herald talking about the pro-voice Liberal says referendum defeat gave the party a false sense of confidence. Without being a complete expert on the topic, for those who are wondering what they're talking about with the pro-voice, the voice was, a referendum essentially, where people got to vote on whether there was going to be people elected to Parliament to bargain on behalf of our Indigenous people, presuming them to be a monolith, which they're not. They're amalgamation of many different mobs, different people, different cultures and languages, etc., etc. Not that any of that really matters, because it's a divisive, policy, if you will, that was really going to pit the general interests of the country against the assumed general interests of the Indigenous population. And there's always going to be overlaps and contrasts and, ways that those two things can't possibly work at once. And should it ever not work for the Indigenous voice, I'm sure we all know what they're going to be crying. So I think most decent people voted, no true Scotsman fallacy there perhaps, but it was voted down. And I would say that voting against it is very much a conservative position to have. And so here we are looking at our Liberal Party, who actually have pro-voice people in them, how far they've steered away from their conservative roots. So the coalition's success in defeating the Voice to Parliament referendum gave the Liberal Party a false sense of confidence. I would agree with that statement. I think the LNP had a very laissez-faire relationship with the culture wars on behalf of the Conservatives, which they don't actually support anyway. And they thought that, this is a kind of a woke issue. We've shot it down. That should give us a mandate to seize power at the next election. But then when you have Peter Dutton talking about, oh, well, we're going to reduce immigration, but then backpedaling and having all these photo shoots with these Hindu or Sikh political action groups, you know, people are going to call BS pretty quick. And I think a lot of the conservative voter base has fled the LNP already. Now that the National Party have left the LNP coalition, maybe we'll see everybody go to the Nationals. We'll see. But I'm not hoping for much good. I think it's really just a split of the conservative vote, which will probably see Labor just storming ahead through the next election, which means, yeah, more open borders, more gender nonsense, more ooh, white man bad, men bad, straight people bad, conservatives bad kind of rhetoric. Yeah, it's not a good outlook. So maybe you agree with me on those, maybe you don't. Feel free to leave a comment and let me know. Tell me I'm a friggin' idiot if that's what you think. Uh, Feel free to add anything more that I've missed out or perhaps some corrections. You know, I don't expect to be, or I don't claim to be an expert on anything, but this is just a regular Joe giving his 2 cents. I hope you all enjoyed the rant, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.